Okay.
Hi, everyone. How's
Hi.
it going? Good to see you guys. Please mute as you come in, but it's great to see everyone. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Kunle. How you doing? How's your summer recess?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm here in Prague at Grandma's house for the summer.
Lovely.
Although I
Oh,
think
brilliant.
we fly to Corfu for a week tomorrow, so that'll be
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
That'll be interesting. It's the first actual flight holiday for 3 years, so that
Oh,
will.
lovely.
But you are looking very summery as well. How have you been?
I'm looking summery, but I'm actually at the agency and it's pissing it down with rain outside. So I'm trying to believe it's summer. We're good, thanks. Yeah, really good. Summer's always a bit of a weird, not a weird time for us, but it's a consolidating time. Lots of contractors on holiday. My business partner Ruben has his 3 children, 4 weeks out of 8 over the summer. So it's a bit of a consolidating time, if you like. And I guess our key word over this quarter is efficiency. So we just take this time to review our systems and processes with all the team, find ways, everybody's contributing, finding ways that we can improve, work smarter, more enjoyable, less work. So we kind of use the summer for that to some extent. But saying that, we have given 2 properties back.
Ooh.
We've taken on 2 guaranteed rents, and the 7-bed development's coming on nicely. It'll be ready to rent in about 6 weeks, I think. So yeah, things are happening, but it's never an explosive time for us, the summer. Yeah, I think for a lot of people it's like that, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. But for us, actually, no. By about mid-August, things start ramping up.
Yeah.
In terms of students, so whatever rooms, even the 1 or 2 rooms we might have left, there's a lot of competition. So there's a lot of viewings, and of course, it's a time to do maintenance, things like
Of
roofs.
course, yeah, if you're in the student market, yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah, it's still quite busy. For me, it's a bit of an
Okay.
experiment. As I said, although I have quite a nice work-life balance, and we're here at Grandma's for the whole summer with the kids, so that kind of takes a lot of pressure off. But there is quite a lot of activity. I was in Hull and Coventry and London this week over 2 days, and that was quite a lot of running around on.
Sounds intensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite intensive.
That's also if you've got these really big projects on at the moment as well, and they're kind of all at the early stages. So I imagine that needs a lot of your time and effort as well, doesn't it, to get them rolling?
Absolutely. There's a lot of things kicking off, Lorraine. It's all kicking
Yeah.
off. Like London buses, some of these projects, you wait for years, you start years apart, and
Well, they
suddenly
all come
go
together.
live. It's all sort of converge at once. I don't know how that is. Some sort of I don't know, magnetism or some sort of effect. I'm sure, and I'd love to hear what everyone thinks actually, because I know a lot of people are sort of interested in the larger sui generis HMOs, and a lot of people are doing refurbishment projects, adding value, etc. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
and we're very excited for our new guest who is coming to be with us later on.
Yes, we've been trying to have Adam on for the last few months, haven't we?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I look forward to
Adam El
speaking to
Masri.
him. Yeah, very inspiring.
Absolutely, a real expert, someone that's a real go-to person, great expertise, great network of experts as well, and someone I'm really looking forward to hearing from, actually.
Yeah, I so admire Adam's his passion, his drive, and his integrity, because he kind of really seems to believe he really believes in giving back as well, helping others along the way. You do what you can and you help others along the way, and it kind of all comes back in a roundabout way anyway, doesn't it? Which is kind of, I think, what unites us all a little bit as well in that kind of philosophy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that is something to look forward to. There's still people entering.
Right.
So people who hi everyone. If you've just entered, please can I just remind you to stay on mute. Looking forward to our discussion later on. What else to talk about? So no FOMO networking this month. But there is FOMO South in about 4 weeks' time, September the 13th, for everyone's interest. FOMO South. So
That's in Winchester, right?
that is in Winchester, and Wendy, Michelle, and Joel are organizing that whole day. Looking forward to that. Never been to Winchester.
We
Have
have
you?
a property on Winchester Avenue in Leicester. Does that count?
It's a doff of the cap.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent.
No, it's going to be good. I haven't bought my ticket yet, but I'm definitely going.
Oh, buy a ticket. Buy a ticket. I think the ticket prices go up because we're trying to recoup some of our sort of admin costs and stuff. So ticket prices go up from a few weeks beforehand. So
Okay.
yeah, but it is still only 54 quid. I think it goes to 59.
Okay.
So not much difference. But let me encourage people to buy tickets.
Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, shall we go into the theme of this month's webinar then, Kunle, which is very much on your shoulders, which is so nice for me.
Yeah, I was saying I tend to shun away from these sort of formal presentations. I'm very much a face-to-face kind of man, but this was my life, my sales and marketing side of things. That's all I did.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do today is talk about the sui generis approach and really talk about my journey a little bit without boring everyone. I will kind of open it up. So if anyone wants to, whilst I'm sharing, raise hands. It's very similar to the previous sessions. I don't want to see. I want to just see how I can see people here on the corner. Very similar to previous sessions. So if you raise your hand, hopefully I'll be able to see you, and hopefully I can arrange this screen so that you can see how it is. In terms of what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the approach, the strategies, and what I call the exits. When you're doing these large projects, what are you exiting with? Primarily the numbers, right? So is there money left in? For me, historically, there has been. Why? And also, what are the risks? So I'm very much about risk-based approaches. And therefore, what are the risks with the exits? And do you have any other options? And that kind of conversation I've been having with some of you who've joined tonight. I see Ellie, Christos, Clive, some of the things that you're thinking about doing and wondering what the feasibility of. One of them, Clive, you did a session. I listened to it and I thought it was great about supported living with Mark Mann. That was great, and here's an aspect from my perspective. But sui generis HMOs. There you go. Why? Why do it? Well, I do HMOs actually for the same reason as I do my other portfolio. It is people's homes, and HMOs depends on how you see it. Yes, you can get more money, more bang per buck, so to speak, in theory, I would say. But yes, you can get more revenue for HMOs, but fundamentally, they're still people's homes. They're not serviced accommodations. It's not kind of trying to make a beautiful place that's a dream. It's actually making somewhere that fits for certain types of people. There are other HMOs that you can have as high-end HMOs, but ultimately, I do it because I'm very mindful that I'm providing homes for people, right? So, and these are homes that not necessarily I would live in now. I have lived in. In fact, my whole family lived in an HMO room about 40 years ago. So I'm very, very acutely aware of the privilege of, being able to provide people with homes, and that's a key driver. I actually think that, you know, if you're, sorry for the screen, but I actually think that if you're getting an HMO, you're thinking of managing it yourself, you have to a certain extent have to have something within you that does that. You know, over the last day, I've had one person who is actually quite a vulnerable person, but was super intelligent and very vexatious, and sent loads of messages, telephone calls, and whatever. And you know, that kind of thing. Yesterday, I heard late telephone calls on and on from this person, and those are moments where you think, why am I in this? Why am I doing this? And you have to have something to fall back on. It's fine if you just don't want, you know, you don't want to manage it yourself. You give it to managing agents, and that is a challenge in itself, because you're giving it to people. Are they reputable? That's a risk in itself for me. And therefore, I like to manage it myself, and I like to understand that exactly what I'm doing. So there is income growth, but just to say that finding that I'm trying to figure out a place to put people's faces so I can see people's faces as there we go. Let's see if that works. Right. So there is income, there is scale, but along with the large income comes large expenses. And one of the largest expenses is utility bills and unexpected utility bills in the last years. And that is very, very difficult. If you think you're getting into it and, oh, everything's going to be rosy, but actually you have to be very careful with your cash and your cash flow. And liquidity for, you know, if you're specializing just in HMOs, I think your liquidity, especially with the larger HMOs, it's very, very tough, and you have to be, you know, prepared. So of course, you know, there is that, but also people think, oh, large HMOs can only doing a 50 unit thing. Well, actually, I have exactly the same approach for the 50 unit as I do for the 4-bed HMO. I have a 4-bed HMO with, you know, 4 gentlemen living in it, you know, all sort of middle-age, you know, mid to middle-age gents living together. The one has been living, the youngest, I would say, has been living there for about 3 years now, and the other ones have been living there for like, you know, 10 plus years. And what I will say is that, you know, as it's people's homes, you want to cluster the design. Here's an example. Let me see if I can get this. You want to cluster the design in the 50-bed. You see here, these are the rooms. The approach is one I've always used. So you can see these are actually, this is an ex-care home, and there were 3 rooms, 1, 2, 3, and the middle room has been converted into 2 en-suites. And then you have the kitchen. So you have these 2 kitchens for these 10 rooms. Is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. So it's basically a room for every 4, a kitchen for every 4 rooms, and that's 97 Murfield Grove. Over time, with the larger units, the approach has been very much one around energy efficiency, which saves on utility costs, and therefore you know, reduces the risks of your costs spiraling. And that is also good for the planet, and it's also something that you can use for your marketing. What does it take? Well, this is not something that's easy to enter into. You can't just, you know, set up a large HMO. You need planning. There's some places where you might not need planning. You refurbish, you've got a big house, you can do things like that. But my suggestion, my approach has always been to, you know, go for the difficult ones, because I know that someone can't go next door and create the same thing. And I'll show you some examples. I'll show you some sort of the exits that I've worked on, and that the journey along that line. But you know, it is in the words of a certain trainer, is it a work strategy? Yes, it is a work strategy, but it's around who does the work. And so, you know, if you have a professional approach and you have proper delegation, proper processes and systems, then you know, you don't do all the work. I work, you know, 9 days a week, 25 hours a day. That's just me. I've always done that anyway. But that's because I'm in a bit of a growth phase now, but I don't have to. And I think, Lorraine, you've calculated the work that you do in your business as well, with the HMO side of things. And if you get it under management, then it does, you are able to get things under management. And therefore, I think that I would encourage people, just because it is a work strategy doesn't mean you can't do HMOs and do large HMOs. A scale survival plan I put there, because as you scale up, how will that work? As you acquire a place, what are your exits and how do you survive the cash flow of maintaining that place? Either it's empty or you're refurbishing it over time. That is part of your risk management, as you add more units. And the other one is the barrier to entry is high, and it's moving higher over time. The barrier to entry is high, but that, I think, that works well for me. That's something that I actually am very, very happy with, because the higher the entry to the higher the barrier to entry, the more difficult it is for new entrants, and then you can get pulled up with that business. The first first exit that I'm going to say, which was my sort of first foray into larger HMOs, I needed planning for. I bought it not knowing whether or not I'd get planning, so that was a huge risk for me, and I had lots of sleepless nights. But everyone around me was confident. I grew in confidence as I knew the system, got used to how planning works. And since all of that, the whole of it was in Coventry. So since then, the whole of Coventry has been in an Article 4 area, which makes the barrier to entry even higher. So you can't get HMOs without going to planning anyway. You couldn't get this one without going to planning anyway. And again, that secures the income, that secures everything around that. So just because it is a high barrier to entry doesn't mean you shouldn't enter it. It just means you need to look at your expertise, look at the people around you, and get the best people that work with you within your team. Operationally, this is the stuff that I've talked about, Lorraine, with you, and in other webinars. Just get your systems in place, make sure everything is process oriented, learn, find out what other people are doing. I had a bit of a breakthrough moment when I first interviewed Graham Lodar-Smith, because he didn't use fancy bits of software on a portal. He just had flat files for his systems, and I've always done that because I always knew that at some point I'd make a massive deal, and then that would absorb all the systems that I've got. But just because you have a systems approach doesn't mean you have to buy loads of systems and make it expensive for yourself. Summary, the rewards are there, but there is cash flow, because you're leaving a lot of cash in these deals. I certainly have done historically. So this is the first one, right? So in 2019, there's a little bit of a timestamp. These slides are available if anyone want them. This one was 2 houses, one which is a larger house. These first 2 what are they called, these first 2 turrets, should we say, and then the 4th one. So there were 2 houses with one in between, and there was sort of 20, it was like a 19-room facility that we made. And I bought them off the University of Coventry, bought it in auction, which is very scary. Obviously, from a London perspective, I thought, actually, that's quite good. Compared to London, I'm getting like 13%, yield if I'm getting 500 quid or 400 quid a room for these. So my calculations were quite simple, but also I knew that I'd be leaving, $250,000 in the deal. Why would I do that? Well, because once I'd remortgaged, I'd be getting, over 100K of rental, gross rent. So the gross yield was 48%, which for me, as a sort of, I don't know, 2-3 years away from the city, my city career, I'm like, that's a good deal. And of course, once I got planning, I knew I can add a couple of extra units, 10% units uptick. And since then, the rent is now 141 per annum, and the yield is 10.7 based on, you know, the valuation yield is 10.7, and we know that in Coventry the yield is about 10%. So therefore, the estimated value of those two, having bought them for 663, within 5 years they've doubled, right? So, and that's partly because, and that's something that I can remortgage on. I don't want to remortgage at the moment because of all the rates, but over time you can remortgage, you can take cash out and put it into other investments, because these are pure. There's no way that anyone can come next door and set up this, you know, anything similar. The planning permission is gone. No, you know, no one wants to do it. It's very difficult to get a mortgage in this area for something like this unless you have experience. So it's very, very secure. You're able to get commercial valuations. I probably wouldn't do this deal now. I'm not doing any deal like this anymore. Why? Because I try not to leave any money in. Yeah, at that time, you know, I was kind of, I guess, rich because I could remortgage all my London stuff. I'm like, okay, that's fine, you know. But nowadays, I probably wouldn't do that. But something like this is something, the way at that time I was thinking, you know what, I could get gross income of 80K, I could get net income of X amount, and it will power a lot of what I want to do. And it still does. It's still kind of quite a foundational part of my portfolio. These sort of 20 units. And the approach that we had here was very much the same. You know, of all the rooms, you just take a room in the middle or take a bit of space between two rooms, and you'd make 2 en suites. You change the drainage, change everything, and upgrade it, and you get really, really nice new rooms. And Coventry is a university town, but we look for a mix. We don't leave it to just students, because there are a lot of students, a lot of the students actually want to, you know, come and rent for only 8-9 months, and we have 10 months minimum contract. But even so, I think that we've got a nice mix. We even have a universal credit and supported living people, which we actually took quite a few people on in COVID, when there was a drive to reduce homelessness. There were people that were sofa surfing. There's schemes that the government do in terms of local housing rates and stuff like that. So all of these schemes started really being pushed by the local authority during COVID times, and they're still going on. So we like to, not just in Coventry, but in Nottingham as well, where we've got quite a few, you know, properties, and now in Hull we're beginning to work quite actively with the local authority. If there are any questions, then I'm happy for anyone to ask questions in terms of all of this. So exit number 2 is around adding value. So this is a project that came about from just talking about the large projects, talking about the large HMOs, and saying that you want to do large HMO projects. And people recognized that I was serious in that area, and therefore came towards me and said, you know, okay, have a look at this deal. And this deal was in Hull, never been to Hull, had planning permission for 40 units. And it's a massive old house. And as I showed you before, you can have those sort of 3 rooms, and in the middle you have, you know, so you can have en suites for all the rooms. So from like a 70-80 bed care home, we're turning it into a sort of 40-50 bed facility. And because it's so large, you can mix it up, so you can have serviced accommodation units. It's actually, the location is very close to Siemens with the wind farms and all of that. So it's actually very, very good, and very, very versatile. And the best thing about it also is there's an extra piece of land. It's such a large site with car parking all around it. So it has been a journey. We agreed the purchase in April 2022, but only this year, and we're still in planning. You know, we continue to tweak the plans and upgrade, but only this year we got planning for a new build block, which is on the other side. There's two roads, and on the other side, Marfleet Lane, there's a new build block which we've got planning for, which was just part of the car park, and that's where the sort of huge amount of value add has come out. But again, this is, you know, where the money left in this deal, as it stands, is £1 million. It cost £1 million to do this development, right? And it's still value. And this is something that is kind of like a massive legacy project for me that I've been working on for years. However, you know, having purchased it in November 2023, so it was like a year and a half to get it up to, you know, to actually complete the purchase. By May, we finally started the works. So 575, and it was about 300K of waiting for 2 years to start the work in May. And then there's about 1.8 investment, you know, works. So it's about and then there's another $1 million for the new build. So that's about 3.1 million for the site as it stands. And that valuation is 3.7 million. With the money left in at 955, because it, you know, it costs you know, 3.7 million. But it's that 955 is also equity that's in there. I'll take your question in a second, Adrian. So basically you have the 3.7 million exit, which will, I assume, if we continue with this, it will be next year, it'll be worth 3.7 million. We'll get a mortgage for 2.8 million, and we will have spent 3.7 million as well, 3.775 million. So that, although it's money left in, it is still equity. I could sell it, and then I get my $1 million back, and I get all the other money that I invested back. But actually, I'm more interested in the gross, well, the net income. Again, we're making it very, very energy efficient, and the gross yield based on, you know, 955 cost, and the annual gross income is still 37%. That's why it's a good deal. Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Conway. And nice to see both of you. I know this one's been chopped and changed and arranged quite a bit, so glad we got here.
Exactly.
So just out of interest, I mean, how did you fund this deal? Because obviously there's quite a lot of sums, there's a lot of waiting around, etc., etc. You know,
yes.
So I'm just intrigued about that. Sorry. And then if the second question, because I'm a big PV, solar, battery, yada yada, EV kind of guy. Just be good, nice, just to hear a bit more about that, you know, the motivation behind it, etc., etc.
Yeah. First of all, I'm just giving a quick overview on these things, right?
Okay.
So, but I do have a whole presentation you can take you through if you want to sort of hear about what our approach is. But the building, one of, you know, the foundation to this approach was approaching a guy called Colin Sauerbutz, which is a funny name, but he's an energy assessor. He's a professional energy assessor, commercial energy assessor that does a lot of the BREEAM, passive house, and all of that kind of energy assessments. And he took his colleague to the site, spent the day, did the drone pics, went in there, did the drilling of, you know, and took all the samples, went in the roof, loft space, and then he created a 3D model. I do have it. Distracting me, but I might as well. Hold on. If you bear with me, I don't know where it is. Hold on a second. No. There's a 3D model. There it is. So this is the whole presentation, and it was originally done for the valuer. And it kind of showed the location and the benefits. And it then we went into the approach. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yeah,
All good.
yeah.
So the guy in, Colin then put all the numbers of all the variables into his, modeling, and that includes the sort of follow the sun calculations, which goes into obviously heating, but people don't think about cooling. And that's like quite key as well. How are you going to cool the place? How's the air going to flow? How's the moisture going to build up or not build up? How are you going to take it from what it is now? And actually, it's not bad. It's an EPC-D to an EPC-B. Yeah. And all of those variables, behind all of those variables are products that he can recommend or not recommend. The only thing that's really bad about what our choices are for our EPC, we probably get an EPC-A, but our choice is to use the infrared strips, which we're putting in the ceilings. We're going to have solar panels. We're going to have external wall insulation. We've got 200 mil loft insulation. We've put an extra 250 mil loft insulation. And so everything is like massive jacket around the house to make sure it's really, really energy efficient. And all of that is calculated. And the heating during the summer is also calculated to try and make it optimal. And then he can tell us what our EPC levels are. And because we're using the strips, they're counted the same as those old, coil immersion heater type things. The EPC system is so old, we're actually being penalized for using these ultra efficient infrared things, which is a bit ridiculous. And that, that means that we can't get an A, but we can definitely get a B. So a lot of that approach for me is like, I just think, oh my God, the bills for Barras Lane are so astronomical already. I don't want to go into this with absolutely astronomical bills. And I'm inspired because when I did this presentation to the valuer, I told her about all of this and our approach. And she said, you know what, I see what you're doing, because you're making these co-living units and you're making it, efficient to do that. And therefore the rent, you'll have really sustainable rents. And I think you might want to talk to our investment department. And they introduced me to another deal. So I got one deal from within our community, this deal from within our community. And when I talk to the valuers, because I always talk about talking to the valuers, take control of the valuation. And I interviewed three or four valuers, and one of them who actually ended up valuing it. I still didn't like her number, but she did value it, and she's very, very. I keep in contact with her till today, and she introduced me to other deals. So when people get your vision, if you share the journey and tell them, I'm looking for these, I'm really going to do this. This is how I'm going to control the costs. So that's why the valuation will be great and it'll look fantastic because it'll have EWI. You show the vision. We didn't have any planning for this at the time, so but your passion shines through. Does that answer the question, Adrian?
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, the numbers are obviously there's a lot of money left in. Oh yeah, the other part of the question was how do you pay for it? Well, there's bits of my SAS went in this and then came out, and then then there's obviously the development finance. That was a steep learning curve, development finance. But yeah, and obviously remortgaging my own personal residential home. And there's a lot of pain. My wife has given me a year to kind of sort all this stuff out.
Yeah, you haven't told us all that what is.
Oh, you're well. All the worst.
Don't need to. Don't worry.
No, I don't think. Yeah, she just. I think it was like January. She's like, okay, you've got a year for all this stuff, you know, because she sees me playing around and doing all this stuff, traveling around the country. But you know, the yields are phenomenal. It's there, but yeah, the cash flows are very, very painful while you're setting things up. Supported living. So this came out of that new build site. So the main build is being 50 units in the main build. A lot of supported living providers do not like to have large facilities, and there are some that will do that, especially because the main build is clustered. I think I showed you, yeah, it's clustered, so there's 2 floors, and this is one cluster, and then you close it off with a fire door there, and this is another cluster, and you've got, you know, separated kitchens and fire areas and lounges. There's a gym at the bottom over there, that kind of thing. So I mentioned the clustered living, but you know, generally, you know, they want smaller facilities, and they're moving to things like bungalows and single houses. So there's lots of opportunities, as you know, some of the experts and the actual supported living providers that we know, like Mark Mann, prefer the smaller areas. So I asked Penny, the cook, who is a project manager, program manager, works with me, and she's asked around, and I was approached by an agent, a go-between, and they had been very proactive, and they'd said, well, we've gone off and we've talked to the local commissioner in Hull, and we found a provider for you, and that commissioner supports people to live here with higher rates of rent, because they need that support. They don't need too much support, so because it's actually quite close to a secondary high street, so it's quite close to an active area. So they don't need that much support. They want to reintegrate into society. That kind of thing is great. Only, can you, instead of 10 rooms, can you make it 12 and have staff accommodation? This unit is 10 flats, not rooms, 10 flats, 6 of which are 1 bed and 4 of which are 3 beds. So there was room to do that. And can you make an outside lift? You know, that bit in the middle around the back, do you make a lift so it's accessible on all floors? And the answer is clearly yes, especially for that rent. One of the things that, again, when you talk to different valuers, this same valuer, when she came on site, she saw the site, and my problem, and that's why, you know, this is, you know, a million down, is the additional million it would take to build this, based on normal residents, the 10 flats would be valued at 1 million. And she said to me, well, what you want to do is supported living. And I'm like, why do I want to do that? She said, well, rather than, you know, it being valued at 1.2 million or whatever, it would be valued 50 to 70% higher, because you're getting that regular income. If you get a long lease on it, you're getting the long income. Just don't forget that you need to have someone who has like a really good credit history, or they're government backed, or sufficient cash. And I talked to her just last week. I said, look, I've got these people, they're saying this. And she's actually said, yeah, we use a system called Dun & Bradstreet, which looks at the credit rating. So when they value, they look at the credit rating of the provider, and that provider is providing me with a 15-year lease. Yeah. And this was the proposal that came through this agent. The agent, they're like, well, with those 12 units, you can get an income of 177,000, and you can get a valuation at 7%. I'm like, a valuation at 7% in Hull? He's like, yes, I've done it. I'll prove it. And he sent me the valuation with a Rick's valuation for his house. It was just a, you know, it was like a 4-bedroom, large, normal house, not a new build, valued at the income plus 7%, that 7%. So we're talking about compressed yield. So if you've got an income of 177, 840 and you divide it by 7%, you get 2.54 million based on a 7% yield. And it's purely commercial because you've got a commercial long lease. And he showed me a RICS valuation, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That seems really good. This is a really interesting option. Since then, I have actually just been introduced directly to the care commissioner. There are 4 care commissioners, one that covers housing, one that covers adults, one that covers children, and one that's actually covers non-commissioned, i.e. it's just ad hoc requests and things. And what has happened, just so everyone knows, is that in the last 2 weeks, and I shot the video, I will send it around. In the last 2 weeks, we had arson attempts on our hoardings, 2 arson attempts in one day, because in this particular area, it's a big reform vote, you know, and Brexit and reform or whatever, but some rumors were spread that we were going to be housing refugees, and therefore we had arson attempts. It actually worked out really well for us because the police gave extra security. Yeah, I know, it's very shocking and very sad, and very shocking for me and really worrying. But ultimately, it's worked out really well. The police were fantastic. The council were fantastic. The local councillors were fantastic. These online Facebook hate page was set up, and they just were going, and they said, "Oh, you should say something that, you know, because we've seen your plans. They're really nice, and they're for professionals, and this and that." And I'm like, I can't, you know, look at me. I'm not going to say something, oh, I don't like refugees or anything, just to placate these guys. And since then, the whole place has erupted, as everyone knows. But the great thing that came out of it is the relationships that I've built with these care commissioners. And you know, it's been again a difficult time from that perspective, but we're going to also have a campaign to the people who are really local, who really want to, because if you're living next to something like this, a car park space in an old house, and it's been empty for 8 years, the really local people want to see it developed, and there's a lot of activity around that. But anyway, so the great thing, the final great thing I will say about supported living is that this valuation is not part of the previous valuation that was done in December. This valuation is totally on top. So there was a cap of 50 units on the whole site, but now I'm putting 50 units in the main house, and I can have an additional whatever number of units, because you don't need, you know, it supersedes planning regulations. If you are going for supported living, so for example, if we have people with disabilities and learning difficulties who will live here, and there will be a provider says, okay, we're having 12 units here. It's not going to be under the same rules as, you know, the normal planning. So you don't, for example, need to think of car parks, etc., or car parking spaces, etc. So that, you know, again, it's going to take a long time. It's going to be more planning, more pain, or whatever. But given that land is just already on the land, I didn't purchase the land, and it's going to be valued at 2.5 million. That's 1.3 million. Take away the 955 that have, you know, that I've already sunk into it. So I'll be a net up at the point where I do this. So that's just recently been confirmed just this month. So again, it's a long journey, but speaking to the right people and making, you know, even through, you know, adverse situations, is clearly paying off for this particular exit. And the final exit is the next level. When I talked to this valuer, she introduced me to her colleague in Knight Frank, and that colleague phoned me and said, I've looked at your website, I've seen what you're doing, I think you're going to like this site, but it is big. I said, oh, how much do they want? She said 11 million. I said, how many units? It's like 116. I was using my Aaron training, saying, don't say no, don't say no. But I said, where is it? He said, Coventry. I'm like, wow. And it's literally right next door to Barras Lane. It's like, I don't know, 300 meters down the road. It's about 1 acre prime Coventry, right close to the train station. And we literally just last week had the RICS value, not the same RICS person, different one, but come back from the bank. An independent RICS valuation has been come back, and we're buying it with a piece of land for 64 additional units at 12 million. And we're buying it at 10.4 million, and it's been valued at 12 million. So that means that we're going to be able to get 90% of, I don't know how many of you guys are on Frank Flegg, sorry to mention their name, but if you guys are buying portfolios and looking at how to do bridges and stuff like that, buying something at 90% of the purchase price is quite a coup. But it also means you've got a sufficient discount from the value that's been established. So that's the next level. There's a lot going on with this deal at the moment. We're doing things like talking to introducers, affiliates. We're talking to a load of high network and sovereign wealth people. One of them who is apparently a very famous, shall I say, athlete, who's very big and tall and famous. But again, he's got a load of cash, and we need a load of cash. But the simple thing about this is it's just a yield play. So we're buying basically a rent book of 1.224 million. We're buying 1.2 million's worth of rent, valued at 10%. So it's valued at 12 million, and that's a RICS valuation done in July. And when we build the 64 units, we'll probably get £1 million more rent. So that 2 million rent, if we make it in the way that we've always done, in the sense that we have operational excellence, we have all the processes, we have management in place, and we have a fully independent brand, then our goal is to sell it on to a investment trust. And if you sell it, for example, 2 million, and you're selling it with a sort of a compressed yield of 6%, that means that it's valued at 33 million. So it's a 5 to 7 year plan, but again, it's very doable. And especially now, because the vendors here, they're putting money into the deal because of, this year, interest rates, all of that is very painful, and they're trying to retire. But as interest rates go down and build costs go down, because I'm sure build costs will go down with the macro economic situation in the next 2 years. As we get planning, we'll get that planning uplift. As we build the thing out and we keep it and we rent it, then we can create that brand. So that's the idea. Finally, 6 lessons learned. Number one, you will make mistakes. You will definitely make mistakes. And I think I put in a WhatsApp group, there's a lot of learns, but actually they're just mistakes. There's just things that you've done, and it will cost you a lot of money. So for me, it's just try and calculate those mistakes as much as possible. Risk-based approach, do your due diligence, and all the training and everything you've done, we invest in ourselves. That's actually number 3, investing in learning and your networking. Regulation and difficulty is good. That's what I was talking about, barriers to entry. Regulation is good. Article 4 is a good thing, and it has been really good to consolidate those investments that you put money in. And that means then you have to spend time, and you have to understand it, and you have to stay ahead of it. My vexatious tenant that was calling me all hours was accusing me of not, signing up to the redress scheme because he didn't see it. But, of course, I'm up with my regulation. I know exactly what I need to do. But you need to stay ahead of your regulation, and that means you need to keep learning, especially on HMOs, as we all know. Challenge accepted thinking. No one would have ever thought to put a new build block on that site. No one did. I did. I don't know why or how I came to that conclusion. Probably just talking to Penny. my program manager, and we always wanted to, you know, do a new build together. And now we are. And I think that, you know, just looking at things from a different angle and you know, continually challenging yourself, challenging everyone around you. There's no such thing as crazy, really. Just look at it and try and understand it. Number 5, you will have no money. Managing cash flow, managing liquidity in your business is absolutely critical. And sometimes you know, well, most of the time you feel like you have no money, but there's an end goal. And if you can keep your eyes on the prize, obviously it's very, very worth it. And share the journey. You know, that's how you learn. But it's really tough, I think, to get the gumption to say, you know, I'm doing this, I want to do this. There's so many mindset things, and I find that you know, FOMO is fantastic with that. And my accountability partners, BYOB Mastermind, I do all sorts of things and I always talk to people and always happy to share any, you know, as I said, was it Adrian, if you want to spend an hour talking about energy efficiency, happy to anytime, because I feel that I will learn from you, not just about, you know, teaching. And that's it.
Amazing, Kunle. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. It's so nice to for you to deep dive into it and give us some more information and share some of your journey. It's just so totally inspiring. The one thing that struck me massively is that you've grown, you've progressed in steps, it seems, to ever bigger projects. And so my main question would be, do you think would you recommend that for other people to do it progressively, or do you think somebody could just deep dive into doing one of those projects of that scale?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? There was another conversation in our chat earlier in the week where a young'un, oh, why have I forgotten his name? Rian's son, I forget his name, but he was saying, "Oh, I'd like to buy an HMO," and someone's like, "Well, why? Hold on, I think you should do a couple of ASTs first. You know, you should do a couple of single lets because HMOs are really hard." And that's I don't want to discourage anyone who wants to do that. I think the key is survival. If you do it and you make mistakes, you might lose money, but you survive, and you don't, you know, you have to ring fence your, you know, the money for food, or in my case, schools. But if you do it and you survive and you've learned, then you learn. I mean, the money that I spent on, you know, $250,000 on 2 HMOs, for 100K's worth of, you know, 100K's worth of rent. That money I spent in 2019, I would never do anymore. I just would not, because I'm full time. I don't have 250K, so I'd go off and raise it. Yeah, or I make sure the deal works, so I don't leave any money out. Why would I leave? You know, so it's that kind of mentality. So, and I've grown over those 5 years. But it's, you know, I would definitely encourage people. The thing that I would say is mentoring. You know, I've always liked to mentor, because, you know, I have young people that I mentor, young business people that I mentor, and I always learn off them as much as they learn off me. But I have an approach where I'm like, okay, well, you know, what don't I know? I've got this kind of bit, and it's a huge gap in my knowledge. I don't know, so I'm gonna find I don't know, a biodiversity net gain surveyor, because I don't know this stuff, and I'm going to just get them to train me, and I've just asked them questions and just use the nuggets. So I ask them the really difficult questions, but go away, figure it out myself on YouTube or whatever. So I will pull in that mentor. So I think that is key in growth, as you learn to actually, you know, be very deliberate and intentional with your learning. But yeah, I would absolutely encourage everyone. As I said, I'm a hard worker naturally, but this isn't about hard work. This is about purpose, really. What, you know, do you want to do it? As I didn't really mention it explicitly, but when I was about 9 years old, I have 4 sisters, 1 brother, and my single mum, and we all lived in one room on Park Parade in Harlesden. in Northwest London, right, for 6 months. Happiest time of our family life for years, right, over Christmas. And I'd take the 266 bus to school and all of that. And it's a really vulnerable time. And there was this huge guy who used to abuse his girlfriend and knock on the walls. The walls were paper. And he'd knock on the walls, and all seven we take our shoes and we knock them and use our numbers. And it was horrible. It was a really horrible time. But I've experienced that. And it was actually, my mum sort of somehow made it enjoyable and was, rose above it and kept her eyes on the prize. She's like, you will all get university degrees. So we also had a standard. So that's kind of why I'm into it. And that's why I do all the management myself. And we also have quality. People don't get that elsewhere. We have, for each room, we have a WhatsApp group. So we get WhatsApp messages 24 hours a day for someone, my radiator's leaking or whatever. And we're going to obviously move away from that. Now we're pushing on 300 dwellings. But, this time last year, I was on 30 dwellings, well, sorry, January last year, shall I say. I was in 30 dwellings, and now we're moving to expand to this. So, you can do it. I would definitely encourage people. But if you're going to manage it yourself and reap the benefits of the sort of the profit, there's not that much profit in it. You have to have some other purpose to kind of drive you into this area. That's why
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. Who else? Anyone else had questions? Your hands raised there, Adrian.
Thought I'd taken my hand down, but Emma's got her hand up, I think.
Hi, Emma.
Hi, Emma.
I didn't see you there. Emma's my cycle buddy.
Ah.
And Emma, I suggested to Emma that we interview her one time because Emma is financially free through HMOs. She spends her life on holiday.
Fantastic. And Emma, you missed the notification last time. I saw your email came in, so I'm sorry about having to delay it. But that was the night when we had the arson attempts. So I'm like, okay, my head's not in that space, so apologies.
I don't blame you. Oh God, tenant nightmares. We know them all. Well, there's always a new one, but anyway, there you go. Yeah, I was just wondering. Obviously, there's a hell of a lot of finance to raise. How did you go about that? And have you got any on bridging? Is it all private investors? How do you do that? Do you do 8%, 10%? How do you sort of structure all of that kind of side of it? If that's not a bad question.
It's not bad. It's a great question. It's a great question. I was leaning in to say all of the above, Emma. All of the above. All of the above. I do have a SAS. Restricted, but SASs can invest in land. I don't know if you know that. So land is commercial until you've developed it out, you're finished, and you get an architect's certificate. At that point, it's residential. Until then, it's commercial. So you can loan back, which I loan back. You can get other people with SASs to lend to your company. Yeah. And you can just buy commercial. And for the whole one, we exchanged and then completed a while afterwards. And what I did was, I think I didn't have that much from my SAS. It was like 50K or something like that. So we put 50K and bought a proportion of it. So it was like we bought 10% of the care home as it was. Yeah. So and so it's knowing things like that, knowing things like capital allowances, SDLT, all of that went into that purchase. We got capital allowances as well. What other forms of so for the whole one, how it is at the moment is that I'm not looking for private investment, but depending on how it goes with this the Coventry one, I might give equity in the whole one, because it's all me. It's just me and my wife. So for example, you can give equity in that one, say, look, there's 360 quid, 360,000 pounds per annum worth of rent. Here's the RICS valuation. You can get 50% equity for X, and I'll use that and put it in there. So equity. The other thing, there's loads of different. I mean, just talk to people and you find different ways. So within your portfolio, your SaaS, and not all SaaS trustees will do this, but you have a residential portfolio and your SaaS needs to have first charge, but it needs to have a charge so you can get a debenture. So you can get a lawyer to say, okay, here's a debenture over all of that portfolio. So it's all mortgaged at 75%. You get a debenture over all of that for an extra 10% across the whole lot for X amount. And then you can lend yourself that SaaS money based on that security, if that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, it's specific.
I mean,
All of the above.
You must have raised hundreds of thousands to buy all of this and fund them all, because some of the refurbs you're talking £1 million, aren't you? So it's
yes,
but I suppose it's staged, you know, refurbs or whatever.
Absolutely. So let me show you this one. I've got a story.
And also being nosy again, because I've got a few solar panels now on 2 of my HMOs. Particularly Lorraine and myself, we're always going on about how much it costs per room in electricity or gas to heat, you know, our rooms and stuff. Are you a combination of both, or leaning more towards electric now? Or, I mean, obviously you just got to go with really what's there, because it's so much of a capital expense to redo everything. But yeah, I mean, obviously utility bills have come down a lot from, you know, 18 months, 2 years ago, but still just a massive cost.
It is, and I think it still is. So let me answer the first question first.
Yeah.
About the whole, you know, house, which is, where is it? Where is it? Large house, right?
Yeah.
And you can see it's massive. It's 1,500 square meters, 1,500 square meters. And I bought it for 575,000. Which is like just, you know, mind-blowingly, you know, mind-blowing.
Was that at auction or an off?
No, it was off market. It was off market deal. And again, that was kind of just a lot of learnings. And Aaron, I actually took a flight, took train, took planes, trains, and automobiles. As I sat in front of the guy, shook his hand, and and it was only because I did that, because another investor came in and offered more, and because he hadn't seen him, he just didn't trust them. So I did that. You know, I don't know if you've ever done the Aaron Curran thing. He's like, oh, my partner has 300 properties. We have a community, blah, blah. So he talked about larger sort of vision, and he trusted me, and he allowed me to buy it. But the financing in this is 1.7 million of developer finance for the main build, and then 1 million of for the new build. And in the meantime, while I was waiting, I spent 300K on, you know, on interest and planning, and so it's for if you take away the million, so it's basically 2.1 million for the main for this bit. Well, where am I? For this bit, it's 2.1 million for that part of the build, and that was pure development finance. So they gave.
What sort of level is you know is the percentage on development finance these days?
Yes, still it hasn't really changed. It's just the interest is eye-watering compared to previous, and hopefully it's getting better, because it's based on.
What level of percentage would that be now? I haven't had any.
But it's they do like 65% of GDP.
Right.
So if you take away for the main building, you take away $1 million for the new build. So it's 2.1 million spent. Yeah, and that includes 1.7 million of development finance and interest and all of that. And the, you know, actually it was 400, I would say 400K that I spent on extras and interest. So it's 2,600 for just the main building. But the reason why I'm highlighting that, because the development finance guys would do that, but when I went to the SaaS people, they're like, why would you spend more on refurbishing it than, you know, than you're buying it for? That just does not make sense.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, they couldn't comprehend that, and they found that so risky. That scared me for a while. But you know, if you think about it, this huge huge shell, huge infrastructure, you know, has huge value in it. And it's confirmed because what's the reinstatement cost according to Rick's value? 2.6 million, which is the same as, you know, the value. It's almost exactly the same as the overall value. So that you know, that shows, I mean, it is a pain, it's horrible, it's scary, but you know, the rewards are there and they're great.
It's never a quick fix for the property. It's always a long-term job, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I showed that journey, because the first one, you know, getting that income really helps, because that's financing all the, you know, planning application, $2 grand to the planner, $2 grand to the
solicitors.
Yeah, oh, solicitors.
Advice.
That's another. Yeah, development finance solicitors is horrible. My solicitor was outnumbered 12 to 1. But in terms of the solar panel, yeah, it's crazy. In terms of the solar panels and everything, if you talk to, you know, I can see Christos and myself, we're not actually that hot. We're not that green or anything like that. And I still think it's very much, you know, on the edge, you know, the value add. But at this scale, it makes sense at this scale. So one thing that, you know, is upsetting, we have to not use gas, and it's still very the electricity is still very expensive. But we'll be doing things over time, not initially, but over time. We've got enough room in the equipment room or whatever, that we're going to have banks of batteries, and we'll pull down electricity from the national grid overnight on special rates, and we'll use that. We'll use the solar panels. And again, you've seen, I don't know if you noticed from the new build, we'll have little 1.2 meter high wind turrets things, which will also, you know, generate.
Are you using the air source for the new build? Because everyone keeps raving on about those now. Or was that?
Yeah, we went through the whole journey with that, but I don't think we are at the moment.
Okay, that's interesting.
We ended up going with ground source, and we found people who could drill and all of that. But when we discovered the iHelios, it just totally, you know, it just negated everything. We just did not need anything at all, because basically, especially in the big building, you could set up a system where you've got big storage heaters holding hot water and double piping. So you need instantaneous hot water. So double piping, pipe hot water for miles all around the house. Or you could just have these little water heating units underneath the sink. Which we opted for. And then we had to build a substation because they had too much power. But now we found a unit in Germany which can create hot water for 3 kilowatts instead of 12. It's like a quarter.
Okay.
Yeah. So finally we think, touch wood, and that was last week. So it evolves so much. And we've just had again, I met on Monday when I was in Hull. I met with a solar panel guy. He's like, for the same price, you can get solar panels 500 watts nowadays. It was 350 last time I looked last year. So the technology is evolving. And it's a trick to not be too leading edge, and to make sure that you're not too far behind and you don't get left behind. Because if you're too leading edge, you go down that way, and it turns out it's the Betamax way, and everyone's gone VHS kind of thing. I don't know if you're certain age, you know what I'm talking about there. But you know, so it is tricky. But that's another advantage of working at that scale, because it will, I mean, at those numbers, it will make a huge difference. And therefore you can afford to put, you know, huge banks of solar panels. 80 kilowatt solar panels we're going to have. So yeah,
it's just amazing. Let me just say, because I know there's other people that want to ask questions. You know, that your vision and where you've obviously started to where you are now, it's just off the scale. I don't know how your mindset has gone from this to that, but anyway,
thank you.
You know,
The mindset, it's all of you guys has changed my mindset and helped my mindset. And there are seminal moments. So one of those moments was, you know, that when I explained when the valuers contact at night, Frank, who was an agent, phoned me up about the deal. And she said, oh, it's this, it's that. And I was just, you know, just saying to myself, don't, you know what we've all said, don't say no, don't say no. It's too big. Clearly, obviously it's too big. You're bonkers to even consider it. But just shut up and just ask questions. And,
Go with it.
and that was a seminal moment, because somehow that agent actually believed, and she is this agent has saved this deal for me so many times, right? She's on holiday. I talked to her, left WhatsApp messages. She's on holiday in the US, and we're still in contact, because that deal means so much. I don't think, because she does bigger deals than this, but it means so much because she's seen my going, and she's actually believed, at times she's believed more in me doing this deal than I have. So it's the mindset journey. Yeah, the mindset journey is there, and I know people have said it, but if I can do it, anyone can, absolutely, without doubt.
Well done anyway. sticking your neck out and being on the cliff face like you are. Well done.
Georgina. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I can see you.
It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for this talk. My question is really, really simple, I'm afraid. But when you were talking earlier, you talked about a minimum tenancy of 10 months. And I know that...
So my sister-in-law just came in.
No problem.
Minimum,
minimum tenancy of 10 months, and I know like 6 months is generally like the industry standard. So I was just really curious as to why you made the transition to 10 months. Is that universal, and what your conclusions were around balancing being able to serve the tenant's notice versus not having that additional cost of voids and like doing up the rooms that you always get when tenants change over. So just really curious about that, as I manage more and more rooms, what minimum contract period I should be setting, because at the moment I do 6 months.
Yeah, no, sorry, I probably skated over that a little bit, but our standard is 6 months. But
Okay.
at this time of year, when students come in, we actually tell the students our minimum is 10 months, because we, you know, it's students will leave after 6 or 7 months, and the people who generally come in and want 6-month clauses are happy. So our term is 1 year, but the break clause is actually, you know, we negotiate the break clause. So the term is always 1 year, but we
okay, so you have a 1 year AST, but it says if either of you are unhappy, you can serve notice at 6 months, or is the break clause just for you?
No, it's always mutual.
Okay.
And it's always a year period, and the break clause is always I think it's a month's notice, a month, 2 months. These are the negotiables, but we always have a year's, and the break clause we negotiate. And when it comes to students, you know, we want shift less than 10 months, because, you know, it's just not worth the voids. They'll leave, you know, in April, and the place will be void till June, July kind of thing. So it's just not worth it. So we say minimum 10 months. So until July.
What drove you to doing that rather than just 6 months and then monthly rolling? Like, how did you come up with this 1 year with a break clause? It's very unique, but I can see the benefit.
I've always had that. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I've always had that. But I also, I think, I've been a landlord for. Sorry, go on.
Funny, that's very specific to the student market you're talking about, isn't it? Because if they leave after 6 months, you're stuck more or less waiting for the next academic year.
Yeah.
The 10-month thing is very specific to the Coventry student market for us. Only that. But for the ASTs, I've been a landlord since 1996, right? And I you know, I think when I went out of the city or whatever, I just, you know, went to WA Smith's, or went to somewhere else, and went onto Google, and I basically created my own AST. And there is a danger, because you can get behind. But so once a year, I'll do a little reconcile with the NRLA and look at the clauses. But for example, I think I had someone who had diplomatic immunity, and I just imagined them committing murder or doing something crazy in the house, and I'm like, okay, no one with diplomatic immunity. So that's one of my clauses. So I always insist on my contract, but it's always, I don't know, it's always been a year, and then the break clause is negotiable. And sometimes they can have a 2-year, but there's still a break clause negotiable. And in London, they're really insisting on much longer now because there's so much competition for places in London. So they're insisting on 2 years. They're like, oh, we want 2 years with a 1-year break clause or something like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Oisin, are you up? Hello?
Yes, thank you. Hello. Thank you. How's it going? I hope everything's well. I'm really enjoying it. Hello. And thank you for all answering the questions for the presentation. It's great. The question was kind of answered in a sense. It was, how do you keep your eyes on the prize, especially going through difficult times? Yeah. How's the question? You kind of answered it in a sense about collaborating.
Yeah, well, yeah, from a point of view of collaboration and joint ventures, you're sharing the prize and sharing the difficulty. So sharing is quite key, especially now that I live abroad, right? So I come into the country, and I spend most of my time outside and traveling into the country. So it totally makes sense to collaborate with people who are in the country. So you know, I'm always looking to collaborate and share and joint venture. And that also helps because everyone has a different perspective and you can all build each other up. So yeah, that I don't know if that answers your question, but also, I mean, I think if you have the vision, you know, if you can see what's going to happen, and you've done it before, you've grown in a little bit more and more confidence, and you know it's going to happen, well, by hook or by crook. You know, I don't know if that answers your question. I'll take that as a yes.
Thank you. Yeah, it does. And yeah, it was actually it came off the back of what you shared about how you were in the 1-bedroom room. So that's what that's. Thank you.
Yeah, with your grandma. Yeah, absolutely.
Currently, I think also that you are really good at working it out as you go, and you have that confidence to believe that it will work out and you will find a solution. I think that comes across really strong with you as well.
Thank you. I think that, you know, I do have a lot of corporate experience and training to fall back on, which does help. So for example, I was having a conversation with Penny this afternoon, and she's like, okay, well, if we have to recruit, should we use this system or that system? And I'm like, yeah, that's based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and whatever. So there's a foundation of sort of corporate there that helps. And then you're like, well, okay, if we're going to do this and we're going to do this well, then, you know, let's go back. So I always kind of go back to training, but also, you know, as I said, I do have masterminds. I don't, you know, shun that. I learn every day, try and learn every day. I think that means, I don't know what it was in politics. Was it Wilson that says, events, dear boy, events? I mean, things will always change. And I'm a firm believer in sort of just-in-time management techniques. So, and that's difficult for people who work around with me, like Penny. You know, I change my mind to her. I change my mind all the time, but I have parameters, and then I might move just to tweak things quite aggressively, and within a short period of time. And I do that in everything. And some people, it's very irritating because it feels like I'm not prepared. But when you realize what I'm doing, then you kind of, okay, fine, I kind of get where he's coming from. So but I'm very much a sort of just-in-time management type person. because I just want to wait until things are optimal. You know, it's like cooking, you know, you get everything ready and then you just have to move really fast to put it on the plate and get it out. You know, if that makes sense.
It does. Preparation is key then.
Yeah, preparation is still key, but the timing also is even, just as important.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Chris Doss, good evening.
Hello.
Nice backdrop.
Thank you very much. Do you like it?
Love it.
Yeah, just a quick one. Someone was mentioning about getting involved and just jumping in and doing big deals and just getting on with it. And it was a case of, do you do it, don't you do it? Well, there's the other option is finding someone that's doing it and either joint venturing or being mentored by them and getting involved. And when there's presentations like this, I mean, obviously you go in and ask questions like, is there any way to get involved in stuff like this? Which we do quite often, don't we?
Totally. And you know, as you said, it is a bit of a conundrum because people look at it and think, oh God, I can't get involved in that. And we've talked to investors, they've had cash in the bank for years and they've been learning off of Aaron and Paul and this and that for years, and they're still like, don't want to dip my toe in, but just don't want to make the move. And I think that, you know, that's really a mindset thing, isn't it? But I think if you say it, and there are different ways of manifesting it, right? And for me, I call it share the journey, and then once it happens, it's like, be careful what you wish for. But, I think if you say it and you let people know that you're open to it, despite being really scared. I mean, you know, the moments I've talked to Emma and Lorraine that were quite seminal moments in my development, in my mindset, were really scary moments, really scary moments. So you have to kind of, yes, there's something about belief, but I think it's more like faith than belief. You know, it's not really confidence in yourself and thinking, oh, I can do this. Actually, no, I don't think I can do this, but I hope to find a way that I can. You know, and you can't do that without other people. This deal behind you that we're doing right now is being financed by the guys who are selling it, and they're our biggest investor by far. You know, ever for me. I don't know about you, but no one's ever invested 1.7 of their own money in my deal apart from a bank, and they haven't invested that yet. So you know, I think if you're open to it and you put yourself out there, that's the most difficult thing, I think, for me anyway, just to actually say, look, I'm looking for these and I want to do that. And I think you can do that. It's perfectly fine. And that's what I want to share to everyone tonight. You know, that makes sense.
Of course it does. I understand your double touch.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You've got your hand up still. You didn't have another question, did you?
No.
All right.
How do I take it down, or does it?
Don't worry
I
about
can
it.
figure out. I can.
IT is not my strong point.
There you go.
Lorraine knows that.
Done it. Right.
Okay.
Anyone else want to? Where we've hugged the whole time, Lorraine. This time.
I know. We're going to have to. Well, I think that's kind of worked out quite well, hasn't it? But, yeah, excellent, brilliant. I think we've all really enjoyed it, and it's been wonderful hearing more about it.
Yeah,
So
I just
thank
wonder
you.
what happened to Adam.
I don't know, but it worked out okay for the best. Adam, where are you?
Apparently the toilet's leaking this time.
He just get called up last minute emergency, doesn't he? He's so full on with his work.
Thank you very much. I'm reading. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, we'll find out, and we'll go back to a regular monthly slot, won't we, from September?
Yes. Yes,
with plenty of pre-warning and a bit more marketing and things. But yeah,
brilliant.
okay.
I'm reading through some of these. Thank you very much, everyone. Adrian, ASB GSHB only really works in low leak new homes. Did you want to comment about that?
I think
I don't want to geek people out, but yeah, air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, in my experience, only in purposely built homes that are built for low leak, low air outflow.
Yeah.
That's where they work best. Retrofitting, it's
tough.
it often needs a lot more improvement to really cut the leaks down.
Which is too expensive unless you have the scale.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Air tightness is another thing, which is
exactly, that's what I mean by low leak, is minimizing the airflow.
Yeah. And your PVs, you've got 400-watt PVs that I can see.
Yeah, I mean they
quite new.
installed August 22. System went live April 23, and yeah, it took about a year to really discover and optimize and learn. I have an EV as well, but brilliant system. Yeah, I would recommend it to anybody, I have to say, but again, it's about developing skill and understanding and trying. And I think regardless of what it is, whether it's property, you mentioned people with money in the bank or whatever, or solar, do your own research, do your due diligence, find a mentor, get lots of information, and then at some point you've got to get past that fear barrier and take action, right? I think it transcends every part of our lives. Clearly we're here because we're all very taking that action on property, but property is a multifaceted thing, right?
Indeed. Well, thank you for that. That's really good. I'm going to pick on someone finally because I know you do so much. Ellie Hewitt, hello. How you doing?
Hello there, darling. I have been sneaking around in the background to listen to you while taking the dogs for a walk, all sorts. But yeah, great content. Well done, guys.
Thank you. Your journey as well is fascinating, especially with going into portfolios and large HMOs and apart hotels. So we should get you to talk a little bit about your exit options at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying about it's not overconfidence. It often sounds to other people like overconfidence or confidence, but it isn't. All of us, it's almost that when you're saying about with Aaron in your back of your mind saying don't say no, that's how it is. It's a challenge, and the last thing you do is run away from it.
Absolutely. And
you think it'll work, somehow we'll make it work, and it's just every day is a new challenge. Working out finding the funding. You were saying before about the getting a deal for 90% under value, or 90% of asking price, and how it's easy to fund it. We've got a scenario at the moment where this particular portfolio that we've negotiated a price of 66% below market value. And we are now finding bridging finance at 75% of open market value.
Absolutely.
No money in. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I was talking to you when I was talking about Mr. Flex. So, I mean, the deals are out there.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to it. And I know how you got your portfolio as well, because we had a talk the other week. And that
yeah.
We're open to this. So.
Spread the word. Talk to everybody. Somebody will come back to you. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for your message, Ellie. Thanks everyone for your messages. Lorraine.
I have nothing more to say.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful summer. And we'll talk to you soon.
See many of you at FOMO.
Yes, 13th of September.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.